Look, what if I told you that making money and having cash in business was two very different things? And that difference has claimed more businesses than any recession ever will. Imagine this with me. You're a successful business owner. Things are going great. Your clients love you. Your margins are good. But all of a sudden, your best client can't pay you for 90 days. Or maybe there was a cost spike in inventory. You didn't have that in your bid. Or just some other situation that happens a little bit out of your control and you find yourself low on cash. That's called the cash flow trap. All of a sudden, you can't make your bills, you can't make payroll, you can't buy future inventory for other jobs, and you find yourself in a bad position. We're going to give you 3 ways to make sure you don't land in the cash flow trap on today's show. You found the K-Cup. Let's jump in.
Hey, welcome back to the K-Cup, episode 22. Glad to be here, John. Glad you're here. Hey, that was a great introduction, by the way, discussing or you touched on the subject we're going to talk about today, the cash flow trap, why profitable.
That was good. Profitable. We understand that.
Okay, profitable. How many syllables is that, John? Okay, so the cash flow trap and why profitable businesses still go broke, right? So anyways, we're going to get into it. Like we said, in the introduction, we have 3 key points that we're going to share with those listening today, that if they use these points that we're going to bring out today, hopefully they can keep themselves from finding themselves in a cash flow trap and having difficulty in their business. So let's dive into that first point, understanding the cash flow distinction. There's a distinction between cash flow and profit in a business. They move through your accounts differently and they get accounted for differently. So talk a little bit about that distinction and how you guys go about tracking that for our company.
Yeah, so I think when you think about it, you get these big sums of money that's coming in from, jobs or whatever. And, if you just look at that in your bank account as this big lump sum of money and you just spending, wherever you see fit or wherever you feel like you need without a real plan, that's when you can find yourself, in some trouble. And what we do here is we actually compartmentalize and we do it with actual bank accounts. We have 5 different bank accounts set up, and we have it for our operating, we have it for our subcontractors, we have it for taxes, we have it for profit, and once we are paid on the job, we know historically, going back over the last few years, what percentage needs to drop into each bucket in order to make it work. So as we take a big lump sum of money, we drop a certain percentage in each bucket, and then we manage each of those smaller buckets separately. And what that does, that allows us to realize, man, we're getting low in our subcontractor account. What do we need to do? How do we adjust to make that happen? Rather than just trying to look at this one big lump sum of money, and you would never recognize that you were getting low on a certain bucket of money. So that's how we do it, and it works pretty well. We're able to identify if any of those buckets get low way earlier than if we were just picking money from a big pot and was to realize we're low on money or we're out of money or whatever.
All of a sudden the bucket's empty and you're like, how am I going to pay this invoice or make payroll?
So we think it works really good. Look, I'm not an expert. I'm not telling anybody how to run their business, but this is something that works for us, and it's just a lot easier to manage a few smaller pots than that big cash flow pot, if you will.
One thing that you'd mentioned before when we were talking about it a little bit, getting ready for the show, you said that you try to identify what money belongs to you first right away so that you separate that off and know that, look, this is what I have to work with to operate my business. All this other money don't belong to me. It goes somewhere else.
And that's a little bit separate from what I was talking about there, but we do that in our monthly projections. Once we're assigned a job, we know roughly the amount of money that we're going to make on that job, and we break it up over the duration of the job.
Yeah.
And then, even taking into account retainage and that coming, a couple of months after the job's finished.
Yeah.
But we do that from a projection standpoint. Every job that we have going, we take that little bit of money that we think that's going to be ours or whatever, and we kind of begin to break it up monthly so that we can understand what our revenue is, and it kind of assures us that we're going to make our numbers, if you will.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, so the second bullet point under this first point of understanding the distinction between cash flow and profit, it talks about how you may have what look like very profitable months on the books, but yet they could literally leave you cash strapped. How can that phenomenon happen? Like starting with our industry, the construction industry.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind on that is just it takes a while to get paid on projects.
Yeah.
So it may be profitable, but you may not get that money for a number of days.
Yeah.
Also it may be profitable, very profitable, not considered retainage.
Yeah.
I mean, if retainage on some jobs is up to 10%. So if you're not getting 10% of your money for the duration of the project, on paper it would look very profitable, but you wouldn't actually realize that income until months down the road, or years. It could be a year down the road.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's rough.
That's two of the quickest ways I can think of right off that you can have a very profitable month.
Yeah.
But and look profitable on paper, but not actually have the money in hand, if you will.
Yeah, and those are very real phenomena.
Yes.
They happen, particularly in the construction industry. You literally could land a great job, big job, and not see any money from it for the first 60 to 90 days.
Right.
Which is crazy. Like if you're not organized well prior to even getting that job, you're not going to make it to the 90 days to get that first payday. And
the other way, if it was a job that pays a little quicker or something like that, if you were behind, earlier months and maybe just looking at your books, you didn't realize that, you could be as far behind as you were that, you could look really profitable one month, but you kind of take that money to catch up.
Yeah.
So a few scenarios there where that could kind of pop up.
For sure. So let's talk about how to track this then. But the whole, thrust behind this first point is that you need to learn the distinction between the two things, cash flow, profit, totally different animals. And so what can you use? What kind of dashboard can you use to track those separate things and see how they function in your business and how they affect your business differently, so that you can learn that and keep an eye on it and be, on top of your business, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, we have we've created a scorecard, and basically, whatever jobs we get, this kind of goes back to the point you're discussing earlier. We look at it per job, and we realize that, we're going to make X amount of dollars on this job. We stretch it out on our projection over a number of months, looking at the retainage as well.
Yeah.
And we start to understand what kind of money monthly our company should be generating.
Yeah.
Now we still may go drop all those revenue into those different buckets that we were discussing earlier, but this projection gives us an idea and gives us confidence that we're making our numbers and that we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
So a scorecard that shows you what jobs you're landing, that shows you what amount of money you're going to be making per job, and what the time frame that you're going to collect that job over is really helpful in kind of predicting what your cash flow is going to be over the course of a job or a few months or even the year.
Yeah. And so you might have caught the word that he said there, scorecard. And it's crazy how many businesses don't have a scorecard. They may have a very archaic way of tracking their books, or maybe they're just using QuickBooks or something, some version of that where they're tracking, generally speaking, tracking their revenue and expenses and things. But a scorecard tells the whole story of your business. And I would encourage anyone listening to, Google scorecard and see what it is. You can literally go into Google Sheets and create one.
Yeah.
And it's a great tool, and the numbers don't lie. It is what it is. And it keeps you honest in your business, keeps you working weekly to try to perform and do well with your business. So if you learned anything from this whole podcast, just the fact that you need a scorecard is a great point, in addition to these other 3 points that we're bringing out. So.
And we have a lot of other metrics that we, track on our scorecard, but it really helps manage your cash flow, and it really paints the picture of where your business should be if everything's kind of hitting on all cylinders and you're executing, like you think you are. Yeah,
absolutely. So let's go ahead and move into our second point then, and that's creating some financial buffers for, this phenomenon of irregular income. Whenever you're working in an industry that is contract driven like ours, and who knows, there's countless industries and businesses out there that run on contracts. That income can be irregular, it can be sporadic, up and down. So we know there's things like taxes, operating expenses, different things like that, savings that you need to do to build up reserves. Let's talk a little bit about those three aspects of creating these financial buffers to kind of hedge against or have a contingency for irregular income, irregular money.
Yeah. I mean, I want to go back to the 5 buckets because I think that's one way that we kind of buffer it here.
Yeah.
It just makes it more apparent if you're going to run into a problem, a lot sooner than you would if you just managing a big bucket of money.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's one way that we try to buffer it, is just through those 5 buckets that I was talking about.
Yeah. Of course, taxes would be part of that.
Yeah. So we have a tax bucket, and every time we get paid, we dump a little money into that tax bucket.
Yeah.
And we do it with every bucket.
Yeah.
So that's one way to kind of buffer and see it first, try to see it coming before it gets there.
Yeah.
Other things that you can do, like a line of credit, obviously, is something you can do to buffer that. If you're doing a lot of public work, if you're doing a lot of work where you're guaranteed to get paid, but it's kind of a slow process.
Yeah.
I would feel comfortable working off of a line of credit. I mean, I know line of credit is not ideally what a lot of people want to do, but I think in that instance, it's probably safe. And if you're getting paid, that could help you with cash flow. You're not putting all your money out in front of it.
Yeah.
Different things. I mean, you can negotiate terms. If it's a private deal, you can get mobilization, you get deposits, do things that you're not putting all your money up front to run the project.
Yeah.
Where in a public project, you're 30 to 60 days out. You're going to use some of your money to keep this thing going. If you're working with a private owner, you can kind of put that out there and use their money to finance their project, if you will.
Yeah. So our second point, talking about operating expenses, we know that you have a bucket for that, and we had talked earlier about how you kind of don't look at profit at all until all your buckets are full, including your operating expenses for a year or whatever you projected. So discuss that a little bit about how you reserve that amount of money and what your process is for doing that.
Okay, real quick though, I thought of one other way you can kind of buffer.
Sure.
I know when I started my business early on, I wanted to buy everything up front. I never wanted to run into any problems where I owed somebody money and that kind of thing.
Cash only business.
Yeah, but I also realized after a short time that probably wasn't very sustainable.
Once you start getting bigger, it's hard.
So, working with vendors, having vendor accounts, now you have to be responsible. You have to pay your bills once you're paid, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But having vendor accounts is another way that you can really help keep your cash flow positive.
Yeah.
And that's just open up, accounts 30 days or whatever. I mean, it's a permanent account. It's due in 30 days.
Yeah.
So once you're paid, you pay it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that can be helpful too, as long as you can be responsible and pay those, pay those vendor accounts.
Yeah, absolutely. Vendor accounts are great for buffering the hits to the cash flow as you're starting a project.
Yeah.
And allows you to, have opportunity to get that first billing cycle in and start getting some revenue back from that work, and
right.
And then everything just kind of falls into place.
Yeah. So to your question about the operating expense.
Yeah.
I think the way that we do it is we don't recognize any profit. So we do have a profit bucket in our five buckets, if you will. But and we may even contribute to that bucket as we're going.
Yeah.
But we don't technically recognize profit until we know that we've met, everything that we need for the year to kind of break even.
Yeah.
So, if we have a profitable month where, we make way more money than we needed, we're still not technically looking at that as profit. We're not going to go spend a bunch of that money and do a renovation or go buy a piece of equipment or do whatever.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to treat that money like we need it for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And, at whatever point we make enough revenue to break even, that's when we kind of start recognizing profit, if you will, and would start to do something with some of that money if we needed to.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, good. Well, let's talk about that third point, and that's like using percentages as a basis for separating revenue into those different buckets instead of just saying I'm putting a fixed amount, because as your projects and your income fluctuate up and down based on how your projects go up and down, your business scales up and down accordingly, right? So explain just a little bit again. You kind of really gone over that, but just kind of emphasize how you wouldn't want to just say on this project I'm taking 100,000 out and putting it in this bucket.
Yeah. So we kind of know historically what our numbers are, and all of our buckets have a certain percentage based on that historical data. Now, if the company's doing less revenue than we typically are, or if we're doing higher revenue than we typically do, we might make an adjustment on that mid-year.
Yeah.
But basically, we kind of know what those numbers are probably going to be.
Yeah.
And we contribute to that, basically every time revenue comes through the door.
Gotcha. According to those percentages.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so let's go ahead and move into this third point, and that is finding ways of smoothing out the feast or famine cycle of this type of contract-driven, irregular income type business. And one of those things that we do here is diversify, our client base. Talk a little bit about how we do that, why we do that, and the effect that it has or can have on smoothing out, those ups and downs of the business.
Yeah, I think we try to do different types of projects. We do a fair amount of public bid. We do a fair amount of invited private bid. And you have to do a combination of jobs to keep this cash flow kind of level, if you will.
Yeah.
And then we also do some design build stuff. Public bid stuff, we know that we're getting paid, so that's a good thing. But it could also be 30, 45 days before you're getting paid.
Yeah.
And then in private work, the terms can be more negotiable. You can get money up front. You could set a pay. You could actually set a more frequent pay deal where it's not 30 days. And those kind of things can help balance out, the income, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think that we try to keep a few of those going for that reason. And then we also like design build stuff. And the cool thing about design build is once we're under contract to do a design build, we know that we have 8 or 12 weeks of planning and design and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it moves to construction. Well, that gives us a little bit of predictability. Like, we know that in 3 months, we're going to have a job that's going to be starting and it's going to produce this much revenue.
Yeah.
Where if we were solely waiting on, a public bid job or a private bid job, you technically never know when you're going to be low. So if we have a combination of these jobs going, that really helps balance out the income part of it, and it gives us some predictability. We're not just waiting on, just one job to be low and the hope that it comes,
Yeah.
So having a combination of different type jobs like that really helps balance out, the irregular income, if you will.
A feast or famine situation. So another area that can really, come back and bite you and affect cash flow and drop you right into that cash flow trap is not paying the proper attention to your contract payment terms. Being again in business for yourself, you really need to pay attention to the details of your contract and payment terms, because if the terms aren't clearly defined, then your project owner or client may not necessarily be felt compelled to pay you by a certain time.
Yeah.
And you may not have any recourse for that either. So that could really put you in a bad situation for cash flow. So talk a little bit just about how it's, the importance of getting that contract right and payment terms and things like that.
Yeah, just thinking, about the jobs that we just talked about. I mean, obviously in the public world, there's not a lot of room for negotiating those terms. So you're kind of stuck with what they are.
Yeah.
But now what you can do is you can look at your backlog, and if it's largely public, then you can try to negotiate your private jobs to make it fit better, to make it more in line with your projections, so that you're meeting your income and what's required. So very important to get that out in the beginning. Obviously, have that in your contract on what the expectation for payment is, when that is.
Yeah.
How does it look? Are you based on a percentage of complete? Or are you getting a certain amount of a fee every month? And then obviously retainage. You want to negotiate retainage, and it's really nice to be able to negotiate retainage. There's different avenues for that in the private world. I mean,
both percentage and term.
Yeah, term, because it's hard a lot of times, specifically for like a contractor that works early on the job.
Yeah.
Still have to wait the duration of the project for retainage.
That's right.
But then even as a general, just the amount and how long you have to wait as well. There's different terms that you can set up. So all that's important and really helps out a lot when it comes to cash flow. And the expectation or the predictability. Like we need to know when we're going to have that money to understand the cash flow part of it.
Yeah, are we going to be all right, or we need to do something else? Great. So the last point under this section then is really, the idea of if you're able to develop recurring monthly income to kind of smooth out those feast or famine times. In this industry, it's pretty common. Not common, but it is known that some contractors do so by trying to get maintenance contracts.
Yeah.
And we don't particularly do that here, but there are other ways that you kind of plan for this feast or famine type stuff. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but just kind of reiterate kind of what we do or how we see our client diversification and all that kind of.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we want to have is, and we've talked about this in other podcasts, we want to build relationships. We want to work with people that have repetitive work. We want to work with companies that are growing, that, are building new facilities or are constantly updating the facilities that they have.
Yeah.
Or even, just a big facility that requires, maintenance in a sense, but office renovations, new floors, new whatever, because of high traffic and other things.
Yeah.
So we look for those clients that have that repetitive work.
Yeah.
So that, we can start to realize some regular income. And it's not always big jobs. It's not always big glamorous stuff.
Yeah.
But it's income that you can, count on.
Yeah.
And that's something
that some of those ups and downs with.
Right. That's something that as we grow, we continually look for and continually try to develop. Is those type of clients, and that's the reason. Just to try to create a consistent income that helps us. When times are slow or when we're super busy, we still have something that we can count on.
Yeah, great. All right. Well, that covers our 3 points. You got any kind of closing thoughts on these points? We had, just to give you the rundown on the points again. Point number 1: learning that distinction between cash flow and profit, totally two different animals. And in that section, you mentioned how you can track those two things separately with a scorecard and be able to see how those things function inside of your business. Second point was creating some financial buffers for irregular income, different ways that you talked about doing that. Having the separate buckets that you put percentages in and working off percentages instead of flat rates, because that can get you into trouble if your business doesn't scale properly, if you're just going with this flat rate program instead of percentages of each project, whether it's a small project or big project. And then our third point was smoothing out the feast or famine cycles and talking about diversifying your client base, having private work mixed with public work for us works good, things like that. So any kind of closing thoughts on any of those points?
No, I mean, I think that, you just want to know your numbers, understand them. Try to make your cash flow as predictable as possible. Even though I know that's pretty hard to do. But if you're making some effort and doing some tracking and some of the things that were talked about, it can become a lot more predictable. And at a minimum, you understand it and know when you need to adjust and when you don't need to adjust. So, just know your numbers. Pay attention to keep your thumb on your cash flow, and good things will happen.
Good deal. So just quickly, one last point for if there's someone listening that's new to business and maybe not understand this, what is the frequency that you and Genevieve? How often do you guys scrutinize the cash flow and look at your scorecard?
Yeah, so we look at it weekly.
So no 30 days or months go by without you guys scrutinizing it.
Yeah, no, we look at it weekly.
Yeah, so that's the point I wanted to make, is that if you're new to business and you're trying to set this up and do it right and avoid the cash flow trap, this is something that a business owner is being disciplined and diligent is on weekly. That you have to look at the numbers, have to know where you're at in the stream of time and the stream of cash. So anyways, great, John. Appreciate you sharing your insight from all your years of experience with dealing with cash flow, and doing that weekly for over 17 years. So it's just that aspect alone is a full-time job. But we appreciate the insight to all these things. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope that you come back and see episode 23. We're glad you're here. We hope this information, I hope you find it valuable and that you can use this to improve your own business, and or maybe you can share it with somebody who it would help out that's in business. And we hope that you'll like and subscribe. Please subscribe. It takes about a second to hit that subscribe button, but please just take a second and do that. It helps the algorithm push the podcast out to more viewers. So the more viewers we get, obviously more people are going to hear this information. And you never know when, the person really needing that information is going to hear it, and it's going to hit home with them and help them out. Also, if you're considering a project and you need some help with that, you need to be able to bounce some ideas off of somebody, please go to the web, go to our website, kellyconstructiongroup.com. Link will be in the show notes. You can go there. We have a web form you can fill out. We are offering some, complimentary pre-construction services that could literally save you thousands of dollars. So if you're considering a project, please go there and check it out. Also, if you enjoy the podcast and you're looking for a one-stop place to view it, you can actually go to our website, and we have the podcast now. We have a podcast player that is embedded in the website from Buzzsprout, and you can literally go on there and catch the latest episodes, or any episodes that we've ever produced will be on there. Like I said, we're up to this will be episode 22, so we're making progress in our catalog of information that can literally help you run your business a lot smoother. So again, hope you enjoyed the show. Please like and subscribe, and hit us up in the comments. If any of this resonates with you, hit us up in the comments and let us know. All right, that's going to be a cut because I'm running out of voice.